deep sleep. There's a state in our sleep where we are not aware of the external world, we are not having any dreams, just shut down, deep sleep. Similar to, for example, anesthesia, general anesthesia, where we do not experience anything. We don't see, hear, smell, taste, touch in the external world. We don't imagine anything in the mind. We don't think, we don't remember. Even that I am not experience anything, that is also not a thought in our mind. Even the sense of I, that also stops. Deep sleep. And here one might argue, where is your precious consciousness here? It disappears. There's no consciousness in deep sleep. Vedanta has this interesting argument that, no, there is consciousness in deep sleep. What is that argument? I remember many years ago in our Institute of Culture in Calcutta, and we have a big ashram there, there was a conference on the ancient Indian philosophies of consciousness and modern neuroscience. And the question came up about deep sleep. And the professor who was arguing that was an American professor of Sankhya philosophy, an ancient system of Indian philosophy, Professor Larson. So he asked, we're not making any progress. The neuroscientists had a different view of deep sleep, and we had a different view of deep sleep. So this professor asked the neuroscientist, Doctor, according to neuroscience, at that time neuroscience, now neuroscience also has changed its view, but at that time, this was about 20 years ago, according to neuroscience, is there any consciousness in deep sleep? And the doctor gave a nuanced reply. He said, the way we understand and define consciousness, there is no consciousness in deep sleep. That has changed a little bit now. But anyway, there's no consciousness in deep sleep. And that professor, I remember, he replied, he said, here is the difference. According to Indian philosophy, some schools of Indian philosophy, Sankhya, Advaita Vedanta, there is only consciousness in deep sleep. See, there's a difference. There is no consciousness in deep sleep, and there is only consciousness in deep sleep. These are two ways of understanding the same phenomenon. We are both talking about deep sleep. There's no consciousness. That seems common sense in deep sleep. But Advaita argues there is only consciousness in deep sleep, which is aware of this absence of objects. Remember what I said about experience. Experience is consciousness plus object is equal to experience. Now suppose you remove all the objects, absence of all the objects. Now you can say either there is no experience, or you can say the experience is of the absence of objects. Consciousness illumining the absence of objects, that's deep sleep. That's general anesthesia. Maybe coma. Although just day before yesterday I was reading a news report that it seems in certain large percentage of coma patients they are still conscious. Anyway, so this is another way of understanding deep sleep. Consciousness illumining the absence of objects. There's nothing to see. That does not mean consciousness is not gone. Consciousness is gone. Consciousness is still there and illumining that nothing to see. Deep sleep is not an absence of experience. It is an experience of absence. That's a nice way of putting it. Deep sleep is an experience of absence. Consciousness illumining blank, nothing. I gave a very nice example once. It just came to me. It was several years ago in an Indian university. We were talking about this, and like that they had this PowerPoint projection. So they had a camera, a projector up from the ceiling, and the camera projects a powerful beam of light. And the beam, it's a focused beam of light. It comes like this and comes on the screen behind you. Now, if you look from the side, it seems like just like this is there, that is there, there's nothing here. But if you thrust your hand in the beam, your hand will shine white with that light. You know what I'm talking about, that beam of light is coming. You thrust your hand there, but if you take your hand away, it doesn't look like anything, just look like the rest of the room. If there's no particles of dust or smoke in the room. Now what's happening? The light is there. The powerful white radiance from the projector is there. But you don't see it. Because there is no object to reflect that light. The space between the sun and the earth is full, is blazing with light, but it looks dark. It looks black. Yeah. Why? Because there's no object passing through that sunlight. Like a comet, I give the example of a comet. The brilliant tail of the comet which we see, which we take pictures of and all that we see in NASA pictures and from telescopes. No, that comet doesn't have its internal lighting, that we are coming to the earth, switch on the lights, let's give them a show. No. It's a sun's light which is being reflected as the tail of the comet passes through, between the sun and the earth, or sunlight illumines it. And we can see it in the night sky, blazing forth. Brilliant display. So when the comet is not there, that same light is still there. Similarly, when objects are not there, nothing to see, hear, smell, taste, touch, nothing to imagine, no imaginary objects, no objects coming from memory, no dream objects, nothing is there. Then there seems to be blank, nothing, but it's full of consciousness. The answer was, there is consciousness there. Verse number 5. Suptodhitasya saushupta tamo bodho bhavet smritihi sacha avabuddha vishaya avabuddham tattadatamah. When we wake up from deep sleep, we say, I have the experience of blankness. I went to sleep, I had dreams, and there was nothing. And now I'm awake. That there was nothing. How would you report that? Why do you report that? We should report logically, I was awake, I went to sleep, I had some dreams, now I'm awake again. But why do we feel that I slept peacefully? Some would say I inferred it. That's some philosophers, the Nyaya philosophers say we infer. They're masters at inference. But that's not true. If we look at our own experience, nobody wakes up and does a process of inference. One just feels, I had dreams and I had just blank. Every culture, every language, I'm sure German also has it, words for deep sleep. In English you have, I slept like a log. Yeah. In Bengali we have, I'm ghumiye kada. I slept like mud. Why? Because you have to remember, Bengal is hotter than this, what we have now, and with 100% humidity. So when you go to sleep in such a temperature, when you wake up, you'll feel like mud. Every culture has words for deep sleep, for the experience of dreamless sleep. Why? Surely it must be an experience also. It's not that no one experienced anything there. If it is an experience, remember, consciousness plus object is experience. So if it's deep sleep is an experience, consciousness must be experiencing something there. And what is that something? It's nothing. It's just an absence of something. He says, Tamo bodho bhavet smritihi. The darkness itself, illumined by consciousness, that itself is the experience of deep sleep. And there's a little bit of subtle argumentation here. The objection here would be, so in deep sleep the mind is silent? Mind doesn't work? No. There are no thoughts, no perceptions, no memories, no sense of ego. So no memory, it's all right, no memory. Then how do you remember it after waking up? You see the argument, counter-argument to what I am saying here. The counter-argument is, if you say that the mind was silent in deep sleep, the mind was switched off, let us say, in deep sleep. Memory is part of the mind. And so how could it be recorded that I was experiencing nothing, blankness? And there are answers to that. If anybody is interested, there are subtle arguments about it. You find it in books like Vedanta Sara. But anyway, this argument he has hinted when he used the term smriti. Smriti means memory. Sacha avabuddha vishaya. Deep sleep is something that is experienced. Avabuddham tat tadatamaha. What was experienced in deep sleep? Blankness, darkness, the absence of objects. That was experienced in deep sleep. Then the number. Point being, consciousness continues in deep sleep. Consciousness is constant, different from the objects, different from the experiences. In waking, consciousness is constant, same consciousness illumines our dreams, same consciousness illumines the deep sleep experience also. And again, just see whether it might sound strange, but is it a faithful description of our daily experience? He goes on. Sabodho vishayat bhinno nabodhat swapna bodhavat evam sthanatrayepyeka samvittadvaddinantare. He says that consciousness which illumines your deep sleep is different from the blankness of deep sleep. It is an illuminer of deep sleep, and it is the same as the consciousness which illumined your dreaming, and which is same as your consciousness which illumines your waking now. It continues even when the world is not experienced, body is not experienced, mind is not experienced. It continues, unflickering. In all three states, waking, dreaming, deep sleep, these are not states of consciousness, these are states of the mind. Waking is a particular state of the mind, dreaming is another state of the mind, and deep sleep is a kind of a switched off, a subdued or dormant state of the mind, seed state they call it. In all three states, consciousness is constant. In all three states, there's one consciousness. And this is the story of one day. One day in our lives, this is how Advaita Vedanta sees it. Consciousness experiencing a waking world, consciousness experiencing dreams, consciousness experiencing the absence of the waking world and the absence of dreams. And then again, wake up. Then what happens? Thrilling, our day. This is our life. He says, what happens next day? Same thing. And the day after, same thing. You'll wake, you'll dream, you'll sleep. And more importantly, consciousness will shine. Somebody was asking me yesterday in informal context, so what happens after death? There are many theories. Religions have certain theories. Every religion has a certainly different description. But I said, one thing I can tell you for sure, and which you cannot doubt. After death, before death, one thing is constant. Consciousness will experience something. What it will experience, well, let's see. But you will be awareness experiencing something. That's what will continue after death. There is no other logical possibility. So I'm sure some of you are thinking, no, there is another logical possibility that you could not exist. Consciousness could not be there. Somebody said, from the materialist perspective, death is the end. Lights out. Your fancy consciousness theories are all gone. Body is dead, nervous system, brain is dead, and so death is the end of your consciousness, so-called consciousness. But that's again assuming that the brain and the nervous system are producing consciousness. There's a strong correlation between the activities of the neurons in the brain and our conscious experiences. There's a strong correlation. And I can also explain on the basis of what he is saying here, why that correlation is there. But the point I want to say here is, if the objection is brain is producing consciousness, what is the evidence? The evidence is the strong correlation. Whenever we have conscious experiences, there are particular parts of the brain light up. There's electrochemical activity. What is it? Axons firing electrical discharge, and then neurotransmitters are released and the receptors. Okay, so the electrochemical activity goes on, and that has strong, tight correlation. But correlation is not causation. Just because when there's a fire A lot of firefighters are present in every fire. Did the firefighters cause the fire? Of course not. It's strong correlation. They talked about, I remember in our old statistics book, there was an example. In all the fatalities in the wars, all the soldiers were wearing trousers. So wearing trousers is the main cause of death in the war. No, it isn't. Just one-to-one correlation. Anyway, there's a deeper argument there, the hard problem of consciousness. So, brain is not producing consciousness. If your consciousness is constant throughout your day, objects keep changing, we can be fairly certain when the physical body dies, consciousness is still constant and some other experience will be generated.